I want you to run a quick mental simulation with me. Just imagine you are at a dinner party.
Okay, I'm there.
You're having a great time, the food is incredible, and you strike up a conversation with someone you've never met.
And you're just really clicking.
Exactly. You share the same obscure sense of humor. Maybe you both love the same vintage movies. You are thinking, wow, this person is great.
Right. And then comes the pivot.
There is always a pivot. Maybe it's a comment about the news or about who they voted for. Maybe it's about where they go to church or, don't go. And suddenly the air just leaves the room.
Yeah, you feel it physically.
You feel that physical click in your brain. You take this complex, interesting human being you were just vibing with, and you shove them into a mental box. You slam the lid. You lock it. They are now, quote unquote, one of them.
It is such a visceral, universal reflex. I mean, we are tribal creatures by nature. We love our teams. We love our flags.
We really blew.
But we're looking at a source today that argues this reflex, this instinct to categorize and separate, is actually the root of almost all our suffering.
It's the classic us versus them trap. And today, we are diving deep into a piece called The Ending of Separation. It's by Jimmy Perez.
Yes.
And he gives himself a title that I absolutely love. He calls himself a student of the human condition.
Which is a really humble way of saying he has spent a lifetime trying to figure out why we treat each other the way we do.
Right. So Perez opens with this exact metaphor of the box, but he takes it further than just an awkward dinner party moment. He says that once you build this box around yourself, once you decide, I'm this and you are that, you effectively go deaf.
You do.
You lose the ability to hear wisdom if it comes from the quote-unquote wrong source.
He calls it a tragic form of blindness. And he illustrates it with a story that is, honestly, it's painful to read because it is so relatable.
Oh, absolutely.
He recounts a conversation with a friend about a teacher, someone Perez describes as a beautiful teacher. This person had completely transformed Perez's worldview, opened his heart, just really profound stuff.
So Perez is hyping this guy up to his friend. He's saying, you have to hear what this teacher has to say. It changed my life.
And the friend is interested. He is leaning in until he asks for the teacher's credentials.
But not his academic degree.
No, his tribal affiliation.
And this is the gut punch of the story. The friend finds one specific belief this teacher holds. Just one single difference in theology or background. And that was it. Game over.
Yep. The friend just says, I can't listen to him.
It is a tragic efficiency, isn't it?
That's a good way to put it. Tragic efficiency. We use a single data point to disqualify an entire human existence. Perez's friend didn't care about the wisdom, the love, the life-changing advice. The teacher wasn't on the home team, so everything he said was invalid. The box slammed shut.
It's scary because I think we all do this to some degree. We curate our feeds, we curate our friends, but the mission of today's deep dive is to figure out how to stop doing that.
Right.
Because Perez claims there's a way out of the box. And what's interesting is he's not writing this from the perspective of some saint who never judged anyone.
Far from it. Yeah. That's actually what makes this source material so credible to me. Perez isn't preaching from a mountain. He's reporting from the trenches. He admits that for a huge chunk of his life, he was the guy building the boxes.
Yeah.
He lived in a fortress of separation.
He uses some intense language here, too. He says he was raised to believe that outsiders weren't just mistaken. They were dangerous. He even thought they might be aligned with evil.
Which is the ultimate box. If you believe someone is aligned with evil, you have a moral obligation not to listen to them.
You can't.
Right. It shuts down empathy completely.
Yeah.
You don't empathize with the evil, you fight it.
So how does a guy who thinks everyone else is aligned with evil end up writing a manifesto on unity? Like, how do you make that jump?
Well, it was a slow burn for him. He describes it as a progression. First, just simple curiosities, a little crack in the wall. Then rebellion against the strict narratives he was raised with. That led to education, actually reading the books he was told not to read, studying other faiths. And finally, he calls it liberation.
But before he gets to that kumbaya moment, he does something really brave in this text. He lists his resume, but it's a resume of failures.
It is radical vulnerability. He lists things that most of us would take to the grave. I mean, he admits to stealing. He admits to hurting people physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
He says he has dishonored his loved ones and spoken against God. He literally writes, I have lied more times than I can count.
I remember reading that and thinking, whoa, TMI, why lead with that? Why tell the reader, hey, by the way, I'm a liar and a thief?
He's setting a trap for the reader's judgment. He's saying, look at me now. I'm a man capable of love, grace, and wisdom. But if you, the reader, are stuck in your box and you knew my past, you would have written me off years ago.
Wow.
You would have missed the person I've become because you were too focused on the person I was.
That's the paradox right there.
Yeah.
We judge others by their worst snapshot, but we judge ourselves by our internal movie, our intentions, our growth.
Exactly. Perez is proof that redemption is real. But you can only see redemption if you step out of the box of judgment. And once Perez stepped out, he found something fascinating.
Right, because he spent 20 years studying everything. Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, and instead of finding a bunch of conflicting arguments, he found a map.
A map with 3 specific locations, or dimensions, as he calls them. The inner world, the outer world, and the transcendent world.
This is the core framework of his philosophy. He argues that if you drill down deep enough into any major wisdom tradition, you hit these 3 layers. And they are identical.
They really are.
Let's unpack them, because this is where the real insights come in. Dimension 1, the inner world. What are we talking about here?
This is the starting line. The fundamental premise here is that the problem with the world isn't actually the world. The problem is the lens you're looking through. It is about the software running in your own mind.
So fix the software before you try to fix the hardware.
Precisely. In the West, we are very action-oriented. We want to change laws, change systems, change our neighbors. But the mystics and the sages always say, stop, look inside. Perez points to the battle between the ego, the false, noisy self, and our true nature.
And he brings in the heavy hitters to back this up. He starts with Jesus.
Right. He quotes Jesus saying, the kingdom of God is within you. Now really think about that. It's a radical, subversive statement. It implies you don't need a temple or a priest to find the divine. It's right there, inside your own consciousness.
And then he pivots to the Buddha,
who taught that the root of suffering is craving and ignorance. And those are internal states. It's not the traffic is making you miserable. It's your craving for the traffic to move that makes you miserable. It is your internal resistance to reality.
That's a painful distinction, but I see it.
Then you have Lao Tzu in the Taoist tradition, talking about the natural unforced self, or Krishna in the Hindu texts, teaching that the true self is something entirely distinct from the body and the mind.
It feels like they're all diagnosing the exact same illness.
They are. A Christian might call the cure being born again. A Buddhist calls it enlightenment. Perez calls it dying to the self. But the mechanism is the same. You have to dismantle the ego. You have to scrape off the mud of conditioning to find the diamond underneath.
Perez mentions that, as a Christian himself, he's deeply moved by this. It's not about abandoning his faith. It's about deepening it. But here's the thing. Navel-gazing is great, but we have bills to pay. We have to deal with difficult people. How does this help me when someone cuts me off on the freeway?
That brings us to dimension 2, the outer world.
Where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. Perez argues that if your inner transformation stays inside your head, it's basically just narcissism. Real spiritual insight must leak out, and it's to manifest in how you treat people.
And again, he claims the instructions are surprisingly consistent across these different traditions.
It's almost a copy-paste job. Whether you're reading the Sermon on the Mount or the Tao Te Ching, the ethical code is the same. Compassion, nonviolence, humility, and a detachment from power.
Let's look at the love your enemy concept. Because that is, well, it's illogical. Evolution says if someone is an enemy, you hit them with a rock, you survive.
It is deeply illogical to the ego, but Jesus commands it. Love your neighbor, and specifically the ones who are hard to love. It's the ultimate dismantling of the US versus them box. If you love your enemy, you have no enemies. The box dissolves.
Through the Buddha?
The Eightfold Path. It's all about right action and right livelihood. The core principle is ahimsa, non-harming.
Huh.
You move through the world without causing ripples of pain.
What I find interesting is the Taoist take on this. Lao Tzu talks about water.
Yes, the watercourse way. Water is soft, it yields, but over time, it cuts through rock. Lao Tzu praised gentle leadership. It's the idea that you don't force your will on the world, you flow with it. It's strength through softness.
And Krishna.
He taught karma yoga, the yoga of action. You do the right thing, you serve others, but you completely let go of the result. You don't do it for a reward, you don't do it to look good, you do because it aligns with that inner truth we talked about in Dimension 1.
Perez has this great line for this. Right living is the visible fruit of inner awakening.
That's the litmus test. If someone claims to be an enlightened guru, but they're screaming at the waiter, they missed a step. The fruit proves the root.
So we have the inner world fix the lens and the outer world act with compassion. But then Perez introduces Dimension 3, the transcendent world. This sounds a bit more, I don't know, cosmic.
It is. And this is usually where people get hung up, because this is where we start using words like God, Brahman, the Tao, or the void. And the logical brain goes, wait, those are different things.
Right. A void and a personal God sound mutually exclusive. One is a person, one is nothingness.
But Perez asks us to look at the relationship the human being has to that ultimate reality. In every single tradition, the highest state of being is surrender.
Surrender. That is a tough sell for modern people. We want control. We want to be the CEO of our lives.
That's the ego talking again. The ego wants to drive the car. The transcendent dimension is the realization that you aren't the driver. In fact, you might not even be the car. You're part of the road, the scenery, and the destination.
So how does this look in practice?
Take Jesus. The ultimate moment of his life wasn't a miracle, it was a surrender. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he says, "Not my will, but yours be done." It's a total handing over of control to a higher order.
And in the East?
The Buddha teaches liberation from the cycle of rebirth by letting go of clinging. You stop clinging to I, me, mine. Lao Tzu says if you align with the Tao, you don't need to control anything because the universe knows what it's doing.
And in Hinduism?
Union with the divine. The drop of water falls back into the ocean. The drop doesn't disappear. It becomes the ocean.
Perez calls this the spark of God residing within. And he makes a distinction that I think is crucial for anyone listening who is skeptical of religion. He says true freedom comes from surrender, not domination.
That's the key. Domination is the box mindset. It's, I am right, you are wrong, I win. Surrender is we are all part of the same thing.
So let's pause. We have this beautiful framework. Inner, outer, transcendent. If all these great teachers, Jesus, Buddha, Moses, Krishna, Lao Tzu, if they are basically singing the same song in different keys, why is the world still a dumpster fire of conflict?
It's the question of the ages. And Perez is very blunt about the answer. It's the ego.
It always comes back to the ego.
The ego is an exclusion machine. It thrives on separation. It needs someone to be wrong so it can be right. Perez has a maxim that sums this up perfectly. Spirit seeks unity. Ego seeks division.
That seeks unity. Ego seeks division. You can apply that to almost anything. Politics, obviously. Right. But even office politics or family feuds.
Anytime you feel that urge to separate, to classify, to look down on, that is the ego fighting for its survival. It repeats the same pattern everywhere. It's the same software glitch, just running on different hardware.
But Perez isn't a pessimist. He actually seems hopeful.
He is. He admits it might sound naive, but he senses a shift. He calls it slow, uneven, but real. He believes we are reaching a point in human history where we can look past the packaging.
He has this thought experiment that I found really beautiful. He imagines all the great teachers, Moses, Muhammad, Confucius, Guru Nanak, Rumi, just walking into a room together today.
And we usually imagine them arguing, right? We imagine a theological cage match.
Yeah, like my book is better than your book. No, my commandments are stricter.
But Perez suspects they wouldn't demand allegiance to a label. They wouldn't say, join the Christian club or join the Buddhist club.
No, he thinks they would say, love God, love one another, and care for the world.
Simple, universal, and yet incredibly hard for us to actually do because the ego gets in the way.
So let's land the plane. We've got the theory. We know the ego is the villain. We know unity is the goal. But I'm just a regular person. I have a job, I have stress, I have annoying neighbors. How do I apply the ending of separation on a Tuesday?
Perez points us to a story most people know, but he flips it. The Good Samaritan.
The classic Sunday school story.
Right, but strip away the Sunday school vibe and look at the raw sociology of it. You have a man beaten and left for dead. The people who pass him by, the priest, the Levite, these are his team. They are the ones inside his box. They share his theology, his nationality.
Because they don't stop.
They don't stop. The one who stops is the Samaritan. And we forget that in that context, the Samaritan was the enemy. He was the heretic. He was the other.
So the neighbor in the story wasn't the guy with the right credentials?
No. The neighbor was the one who acted. Perez writes, the opposite of separation is not uniformity, it is compassion.
I think that is such an important distinction. He isn't saying we all have to blend into one gray blob. We can keep our traditions. We can keep our cultures.
Right. You don't have to stop being Christian or Muslim or atheist. Uniformity is boring. But you have to prioritize compassion over the label. And Perez gives us a very practical biohack for this, a way to retrain the brain.
The old question versus the new question.
Exactly. When we meet someone, the old question, the ego's default setting, is which team are you on?
Are you red or blue? Rich or poor? Believer or skeptic? We are constantly scanning for threats or allies.
It's exhausting, and it's isolating. But Perez suggests replacing that with the new question. As soon as you engage with another human being, you ask yourself, how can I help?
How can I help?
It's impossible to ask, how can I help, and simultaneously judge someone as evil. The question forces your brain into a state of connection. It bypasses the box entirely.
It bridges the gap instantly. You see their humanity and their need before you see their label.
That is the journey from separation to liberation. And as Perez notes, beneath the diversity of all these traditions, there is a shared moral and spiritual architecture. We aren't making this up as we go along. It's been the blueprint for thousands of years. We just keep misreading it.
It's fascinating because it reframes what it means to be deep in your faith. Perez says he's a Christian, but he argues that if you go deep enough into your own tradition, whatever it is, you will inevitably find these universal truths.
That's the mic drop moment for me. He says, if your tradition is leading you to hate, you haven't gone deep enough.
I'm going to repeat that. If your tradition is leading you to hate, you haven't gone deep enough.
You're still swimming in the shallow end of the pool where the us versus them mindset lives. The deep water is where the unity is. It distinguishes religion as an identity, a badge you wear to feel special, versus religion as a transformation, a fire that actually changes who you are.
This has been a really refreshing deep dive. We started with the box, that comfortable, dangerous little mental prison where we act like the world is us versus them.
We walk through Perez's own messy, honest journey from judgment to grace.
We mapped out the 3 dimensions, the inner world of awareness, the outer world of compassion, and that transcendent world of surrender.
And we identified the ultimate tool to break the cycle. Stop checking credentials and start asking, how can I help?
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We've talked a lot about labels and boxes today. I want you to think about the person in your life right now who you feel the most separate from. Maybe it's a relative who posts things online that make you crazy. Maybe it's a coworker you just can't stand.
The person you've put in the tightest box.
Exactly. If we stripped away every label, political party, job title, religion, past mistakes, if we stripped away the box you've put them in and the box they've put you in, what would be left? Would you feel smaller without your team jersey? Or would you finally be able to recognize the neighbor standing right in front of you?
This is a scary question, but it's the only one that matters.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Take care of each other.
We'll see you next time.